Scene 1, Introduction. Voiceover. Have you ever cried after watching an emotional movie or while reading a heart-touching book? Or perhaps you've shed tears in moments of joy, laughter, or deep sorrow? Well, you're not alone. Humans are uniquely wired to cry emotional tears. But why? What makes this universal response so deeply tied to our emotions? Stay with me as we unravel one of the most fascinating and yet mysterious human behaviors. Trust me, you'll never look at your tears the same way again. Scene 2, The Science of Tears. Voiceover. Let's start by understanding tears. Did you know there are actually 3 types of tears? Basal tears, reflex tears, and emotional tears. Basal tears serve as a shield. They protect the eye from drying out and ensure your vision remains crystal clear. Reflex tears are the body's emergency response team. These wash away irritants like dust or onion fumes. But the third type, emotional tears, is where things get compelling. These are the tears we cry in response to feelings, joy, sadness, or frustration. And their composition is different from other types of tears. But why? Emotional tears contain higher levels of stress hormones like cortisol and even endorphins, making them a dose of emotional regulation in liquid form. Fascinating, right? Scene 3. When did humans start crying? Voiceover. To understand why we cry, we need to go back in time. Evolutionarily, humans share basic emotions like fear and joy with other species. But crying emotional tears? That's a human-exclusive behavior. It's believed that our early ancestors used crying for survival. Perhaps shedding tears helped signal distress when words weren't an option. Fast forward thousands of years, and crying evolved into a social behavior. Ever noticed how tears evoke empathy in others? That emotional signal can create strong bonds, foster nurturing, and even diffuse conflict. Crying literally helped us survive and thrive as a species. Astonishing, isn't it? Scene 4. The psychology behind emotional tears. Voiceover. Psychologists say crying fulfills a psychological purpose too. Imagine a heavy emotional load weighing on your shoulders. Crying acts like a reset button for your brain, releasing pent-up feelings. It's like your body's way of saying, let it out so you can move on. Research even shows that people often feel a sense of relief or lightness after a good cry. And here's the kicker. Did you know emotional tears create social connections? When you cry in front of someone, it triggers empathy and can bring people closer together. Scene 5. The role of hormones and chemicals. Voiceover. Now let's geek out a bit. Scientists have discovered that emotional tears are loaded with proteins, hormones, and even natural painkillers. One key player is oxytocin, also known as the love hormone. Yes, oxytocin levels rise when you cry, helping decrease feelings of stress and creating a calming effect. Can you believe crying is almost like your body's built-in therapy session? It's a deep and multifaceted response that's far beyond just leaking water from your eyes. Scene 6. Gender differences. Voiceover. Here's an interesting twist. Women cry more often than men. Studies show that women shed emotional tears about 5 times more than men do on average. The reasons? Part social, part biological. Hormones, especially prolactin, play a role, and society's varying expectations about emotional expression factor in too. But don't worry, guys. Crying is just as normal and beneficial for you as it is for women. Scene 7. Culture and crying. Voiceover. What about culture? Does culture affect how much or why we cry? Absolutely. In some cultures, crying might be viewed as a sign of vulnerability or weakness, while in others, it is celebrated as an essential part of emotional expression. For example, in Japan, discreet emotional expression is the norm. Meanwhile, in Mediterranean cultures, open and loud crying is more acceptable. But at the end of the day, no matter where you are from, crying emotional tears is undeniably a universal experience. Scene 8. But what if you can't cry? Voiceover. Here's a question. What happens if someone can't cry emotional tears? Some people, due to medical or psychological conditions, might struggle to cry. This can happen in individuals who are depressed or have certain neurological conditions. Lack of crying can even correlate with reduced emotional expression or challenges in social connections. Thankfully, therapies like practicing mindfulness or even rewatching your favorite tearjerker movie can activate those emotional tear ducts. Scene 9. Why is crying so painful yet so healing? Voiceover. Sometimes crying feels deeply painful, like your world is ending. But that's part of its paradoxical beauty. Emotional crying forces you to confront your raw emotions. This catharsis can be freeing, helping you heal. It's as if your tears are there to say, feel it all, and then let it go. Pretty poetic, don't you think? Scene 10. Fun facts and final wrap-up. Voiceover. Before you go, here's a fun fact that might surprise you. Emotional crying isn't just limited to humans. Some studies hint that elephants and even some primates may cry emotionally too. We're not sure yet, but wouldn't it be mind-blowing to confirm that we're not alone in this emotional realm? So, next time you wipe away an emotional tear, remember, it's your body's way of rebalancing, reconnecting, and releasing. Crying is an amazing feature of being human. Thanks for watching this episode of Why Facts. Until next time, stay curious and keep wondering why.